inspired by the Baha'i concept that the beauty of the natural world is an expression of God. All things material express the attributes of God. And then the last thing that you mentioned, Tina, is to develop one's own inner character in service to God and to contribute to the transformation of society. So right. So for our next speaker, Gaurav Rastogi, comes back a second time. The first time that he spoke to the big questions, he spoke about life or consciousness. Is there life or consciousness after death? And today he is here to talk about the big question of this year. Who, what, where is God? Mr. Rastogi is an interfaith speaker who writes and talks about Hindu scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita. I practiced that, believe it or not. Bhagavad Gita, and Vedanta philosophy, bringing the ancient wisdom into practical language that can be applied to anyone interested in living deeply. Gaurav is a founder and director of the Hindu Community Institute in Milpitas, California, where they are training the first batch of scholars to serve the community as counselors of Hindu tradition. His personal meditation practice includes Taoist, Qigong, as well as Tibetan Bong. He has been trained in the Christian tradition and has explored the syncretic Sufi traditions of India. He also studies the scriptures of other Indian traditions, such as Sikhism, Jainism, and Buddhism. Thank you, Gaurav.
Namaste. The last time I was here, we were discussing death and reincarnation. And I hope some of you were there. And I certainly expect some of you have since returned back into the world and are here to present your personal testimony about reincarnation. Could you tell me what time it is right now?
It is about 20 of 3.
20 past?
20
of 3. That's, wow. That's the weirdest thing. I've been asking that question all day. And each time, every time I ask someone what the time is, they give me a different answer. I have a confession to make. And I'm a very scientific, rational person. And I find it very hard to accept things that I cannot perceive directly. And so, I don't believe in time. You could say I am a time atheist, or at least a time agnostic, which is to say, I'm not just sure that time isn't just the invention of people wishing to sell watches. It's a scam, really it is. I can't see time. I can't feel it on my fingers. I can't build sophisticated instruments to tell time. Just the movement of time from one moment to the next. And when you try to measure it, you get confusing results. It flies when you're having fun. It stands still when you're in love. And it absolutely stops when you're in line at the DMV. So if someone asked me to present on the topic of who or what is time, I would be here talking about how I stopped believing in time when I grew up. It was the same thing to do. It only works if you believe in it. But alas, somehow it didn't stop moving. Even after I stopped believing, it ticks even as I talk. Time and tide stop for no one. not even unbelievers or infidel. In popular culture and the changing of the calendar, Father Time is shown often as an old, bearded man carrying an hourglass to tell time, but hardly anyone believes that this man-shaped creature is really time. Just a way of thinking about the abstract notion of time. By the way, we Hindus do not think of time as old. He would indeed be a young and powerful man of indescribable power, wealth, and beauty. Because time has power, symmetry, and beauty. Plus, he would not be carrying an hourglass, but a wheel. Because what goes around comes around. So, on to the question of who or what is God. And as proof at this court, I bring incontrovertible evidence. Please watch carefully. This, by the way, it's very important. It's a snack I bring along just in case I get hungry, but also as proof. So, who or what is God? And you laugh, but this is really part of a talk given after the 2016 Nobel Prize in Physics. It really is. It's a serious bit of work. It wasn't great inflation. You see, the bagel has just one hole, no question about it. This pretzel, if you look carefully and count, has two holes, right? I could, if I wanted, I could fold a bagel into half and get two full holes and get a pretzel out of it. But I can't get 2/3 of a hole or 1/2 of a hole. I can only get whole holes. And that's important. There is a symmetry to this fullness. You agree? And from one whole hole, it is possible to get another hole and another and another. An inheritance of wholeness from bagel to pretzel. We'll get rid of that. I got more in there. Now, this is the first verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad. It goes, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, this is full. That is full. This fullness has been projected from that fullness. When this fullness emerges from that fullness, all that remains is fullness. Om, peace, peace, peace. Interesting that I follow an OBGYN. When we weren't yet born, we weren't there. And when we were but a fetus in our mother's womb, we were just a part of our mother. We were not there. And yet, our mother, she felt complete in her own identity. She felt complete. And after she delivered a whole new being, she felt complete then too. She did not feel 1/3 lesser of a being because, hey, there's a new being out of me. She felt complete. And she was whole all along, complete in herself. And her mother, before her, she felt complete too. And so on, going all the way back to the first mother. The sense of completeness is inherited from a long chain of being. A long chain of being. Being itself is the cause for being. A long, unbroken chain of being inherited from being itself. An inheritance of wholeness from the original creator to each being. Purnat Purnamudachyate. But when we die, the universe stays around, not feeling any more complete than when we are alive. What comes from this universe, or God, which is what people called the absolute before religion became a retrograde term for some. What comes from the universe has gone back into the universe, and nothing changes in the wholeness of the universe because of this coming and going of an individual whole. Whole to whole, whole to whole. nothing changes. But, as René Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. So what do I think? What is it to live and feel like a full self? Our conscious mind creates our experience, and we feel that we are complete. When I look out from these eyes, I don't somehow think, well, I somehow miss having X-ray vision. I don't miss not being me. When I feel things with my hand, I'm not thinking, I miss not having the ability to pass my hands through matter like a hot knife passes through butter. We don't just miss not being us. We feel our experience is complete and we are a full self. And yet, deep inside, our sense of being a person is punctured by a sense of not being whole. We know this feeling as a spiritual hunger, a yearning, or an unasked questioning that calls us, this sense of unease. This sense of unease with our individualized identity drives us to madness, and we want to transcend this self and merge into the universal self. This merging is the experience of God when we see the world outside and inside with the same eyes, when the distinction between this and that has disappeared, and when the distinction between me and not me has disappeared and been dropped. That moment, we become whole. That experience is what's described in the verse I quoted from the Isha Upanishad, and by every other seeker that has realized. From many wholes, we return to the whole. But where does this original being live? The next verse in the same scripture is Om Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kimcha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha magrita kasya svedhanam. Om, all this, whatsoever moves on the earth, is enveloped by the Lord. Protect yourself through that detachment. Do not covet, for whose is wealth. Ishvara, which is one of our names for the English concept of God, pervades and envelopes all this that moves and all this that doesn't. He is inside our hearts as ourself, and He is the entire universe unfolding all around us. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Vasudev is all-pervading and everything is Vasudev. Knowing this, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. I think we've all learned another snack, you'd say? All right. Would you mind passing these along to other fellows? That's some snack. It's sweet, so if you're diabetic or avoiding sweets, this may not be the one for you. So this, by the way, is a traditional Indian sweet. It's called the Jalebi. It's made with fermented flour and yogurt, which is fried into these many pretzel shapes, by the way, many holes in those. And then when these are crispy fried, the dough, it's a porous matrix. And it's immediately dipped into a sugar syrup. So what you have there, these things are essentially loaded with sugar. The jalebis are meant to be eaten hot and crispy and dripping with sweetness. In our scripture, it says, Annam Brahma, Rasa Vishnu. It is said in the Indian scripture, God is food and Vishnu is the essence. All the sweetness and goodness we experience in this world is the experience of the sweetness of God. Flour is not sweet, but these jalebis are. And if you just suck on these jalebis for a few minutes, you'll realize that all the sweetness goes away, and all that remains is a soggy flour matrix, the porous thing itself. This material world of our senses is dry, brittle, and tasteless. And what we crave is the sweetness of God. Elsewhere it is said, Raso Vaisah, He is taste. What pervades these jalebis is that sweet syrup. What pervades this universe and all other universes is God. The flour matrix is the material creation, also made of God. The food is God, The eater is God, engaged in divine snacking, engaged in divine play, that which we call Leela. All that shields us from being one with God is our illusory sense of me and mine. This illusion of me and mine is strong, of an independent world and an independent self. Another Upanishad, the Chandogya Upanishad, lovingly recalls the conversation between father and son. Now, fresh from a long education, many, many years at the school, and filled with information, right here, the son returns home to his father and proud of his information. The father asks, in order to separate mere information from knowledge and the false pride that gathers when information is tightly packed, the father asks, quote, "Do you know that by knowing which everything is known? Do you know that by which the unheard becomes heard, the unthought becomes thought?" End quote. The boy is well informed but has no knowledge of this. "How is it possible?" he says. The boy queries the father, "What is the meaning of this question? How is it possible for one to know in this manner?" The father responds, "If you know clay, you know also the things that are made of clay, like a clay pot, a tumbler, and plate. If you know gold, you know also the earring, the necklace, and all jewelry that is made of gold. And so all this variety of name and form that you see all around is varied, but the infinity of variety hides the truth in plain sight. Ekamev Advitiyam. There is just one being, cloaked in a matrix of non-being. Ekamev Advitiyam. Note to self, no two selves, just one self. There is one alone, no two. All this is one, there is no other. That which you seek is the one that seeks. But this is hard to digest, isn't it? I mean, not the jalebis. The jalebis are fine. They're tasty and digestible. Just don't overdo it. Pace yourself. But it continually confounds us because from the corners of our eye, we see the truth, but yet don't see it. Like a dog chasing his own tail, we spin. I read a report, and again, I'm amazed that I didn't realize you were an OBGYN until like 15 minutes ago. So I apologize. I read a report some time back that infants do not have a separate sense of self until they're 18 months. Before that, I and my mother are one. Echoes of John 10:30 here. I and my mom are one. A wholeness that breaks when we look into the mirror and recognize two forms whence we once knew to be one. This sense of a fractured identity gives us the momentum to roil about this world looking for the missing self, headless chicken-like. A wholeness broken through a long chain of being, from child to mother and another, all the way back, a long chain of being. A return to God is what we seek as an unquenched spiritual hunger. But we instead consume fame, fortune, sex, and salvation, where all that is needed is to drop one letter off the alphabet, that one between hotel and Juliet. What time is it? 5:03, you're fine. I thought you weren't going to fall for that one again, but all right. With Sarah... With Sarah's permission, and like the good student that I am, I will go for the extra credit questions. All right, does this God make my team win sports matches? It's almost Super Bowl Sunday, so why not? And with practice, yes, of course. Another ancient Hindu text, the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, begins with the goddess asking Shiva, sitting on his lap, this: "O Shiv, what is your reality? What is this wonder-filled universe? What constitutes seed? Who centers the universal wheel? What is this life beyond form, pervading forms? How may we enter it fully, above space and time, names and description? Let my doubts be cleared." Now, you'll have to see me after this talk to find out how Shiva responds. But for now, please pay close attention to this. You have it on the sheet in bold. Who centers the universal wheel? The universe must have order. A calculus of action and reaction that allows it to turn on its axis. And it is this sense of periodicity and order that the Hindus paid attention to. After all, someone should ask the question that must be asked. How is it that avocados are never in season at the Costco? These things are rock solid like grenades, but they're available throughout the year. And miraculously, you keep them outside for what seems like in my household a couple of months. They're ripe by themselves. Who ripens the avocados? What makes the clock tick? Why does karma get you every time? And why what cannot be seen by the eyes and felt by the fingers can still be inferred by the moment-to-moment continuity and order. The Hindus call this rita, or order, and later we call it dharma, the universal foundation of life and relationships between things and that move and don't move, between the colors of the rainbow, between the seasonal cycles, and why good deeds must yield good results. Good teams win, but sometimes bad teams win too, so that the good teams may find the great inside of them. God is an abstract concept, like time is also, but through every blink of our eye, we see him. Every silence between the maelstrom of thoughts, we hear him. And how every time we are moved to tears by beauty, by awe, by luminousness, every time we are moved to tears, we are touched by him. We deny God only to find a new name, like the Absolute or the universe, even space aliens or the machine from the movie The Matrix. Now, here's another question. Do I believe in the Webster's Dictionary? I got another sample here. Well, do I believe in the Webster's Dictionary? I think it's preposterous. Which is, by the way, an adjective implying an objective is contrary to nature, reason, or common sense. Synonyms being absurd, bizarre, nonsensical, and wild. But yes, like the concept of time, I may also be a Webster's Dictionary atheist or an agnostic, believing more in my favorite, the Oxford English Dictionary, which I find reasonable and sensible, which, by the way, are from the thesaurus antonyms for preposterous. Wouldn't you agree that a dictionary by another name is still another collection of words? And what we seek is wholeness of experience beyond time and circumstance and words. Purnamada, Purnamidam. This is full. That is full. Is it possible to see God? As the French author Marcel Proust said in his In Search of Lost Time, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscape, but in having new eyes. In the Hindu tradition of mystic yoga, not just the posture variety, this is well known and understood. Sri Krishna, the original being himself, spoke to his best friend, the ace archer, Parth, in the middle of the battlefield in the Bhagavad Gita. Ye yatham mam prapadyante tam sathaiva bhajamyaham mam vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. This is from the Bhagavad Gita. Now, many thousands of years later, a grunge music band in Seattle, interestingly named after the Sanskrit word for liberation, Nirvana, sang, "Come as you are. Come as you are. As you are, you will receive me." If you're a philosopher, the original being appears as an abstract sameness, a merger of identity, a sense of being one with the universe. P.S. You don't even need to believe in God for this type of presence, because a personal God is outside the sphere of action for this type of practice that seeks an impersonal wholeness of the Buddhist variety, where you want to be one with the universe. You can be one with the universe, but then it's not felt personally. Your personality is dissolved. Now, if you're a person who revels in work, he appears as the joy of work, the experience of flow. If you're a devotee of a personal concept of God, he reciprocates your love in kind. Dollars for dollars, cents for cents, and, well, also euros for a small conversion fee. There are many ways to love. As an idea, Shantarasa. As a slave, Dasya Rasa. As a friend, Sakhya Rasa. As a lover, Madhurya Rasa. Or a parent, Vatsalya Rasa. And depending on what state of love you experience, the original being appears to answer your calling. In the Hindu tradition, he appears as a friend to Arjun or Parth in the last verse I chanted to you. And as a friend, he has agreed to drive the chariot into the war. The Bhagavad Gita is set in the middle of the battlefield. And it's sort of like a buddy movie, which has gone into a whole new different direction. Now, earlier in that particular incarnation, the original being appears as a young cowboy. He's dancing with the pretty maidens, stealing their hearts and clothes, all in divine play. He appears also as a son, playing and eating mud, sometimes eating it, sometimes stealing from the cookie jar. Back then it was the butter jar. In the battlefield too, in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives the deepest secrets for a song. And then, when asked by Arjun, he presented his universal form, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 hands. Everywhere, a vision so fierce that even the mighty warrior Arjun trembled and asked his friend to please return to a more manageable proportion. There is a war to be fought. And by the way, I'm guessing he rated his Uber ride of 5 stars. He appeared also as a swan, a boar, a man lion, whenever the need arises. As the prayers ring out from hearts filled with love, he arrives in unexpected ways. He is the heart of hearts, and he knows and speaks the language of the heart. The Hindu tradition allows everyone to go only as far as they want. Some might want the philosophical non-God, and that is acceptable. Some might want their mother back, and she appears filled with love and opulence, or filled with wrath to destroy evil. But it is to be understood that he that cannot be named, because he is beyond names and form. Indeed, he is the source of all name and form. That he that cannot be contained in a single name can still be known by 1,000 names that can change with country, time, and context. What matters is not the name you know him by, but what moves your heart to matters beyond the mundane. Not the name, but the key that unlocks your heart, that breaks your heart, and anything that separates the self from the other. This divine connection from the heart that transcends time, that maintains order, that creates all that is seen, everything that moves and everything that doesn't, and knowing whom we can surrender, renounce and enjoy. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Renounce and enjoy, for whose is wealth that we try to grasp repeatedly and fail. For whose is wealth but the creator of all there is, who pervades everything and everyone as the self, the original being who is full and from whom fullness emanates and leads on to us as ourselves, separated from God by false ideas of me and mine, and that single alphabet between Hotel and Juliet. What time is it now? There is no such thing as time. Namaste. Well played. Namaste. I am done. Sure. Sure.
So now, if you have some questions, we have a few moments for questions for Gaurav. And repeat the question.
Sure, yeah. Sure, I'll repeat the question. The question is Krishna a real person, or is it a concept, a metaphorical idea to explain a point of view or a perspective? It depends on which branch of the Hindu tradition you pay attention to. The same book, the Bhagavad Gita, is read by pretty much all the traditions. Those that believe in a personal God, those that don't believe in a personal God, all can refer to the same book and read different things into it. The Advaita Vedanta people, which are people who are non-dualists, who may stop at the impersonal level, their idea of Sri Krishna and the Gita itself is that it is said from the perspective of the original being, but it is a metaphorical, it's a sort of poetic conceit. But the bhakti, the devotional parts of the Hindu tradition go all the way. They're all in at this casino. And it's very simple to them. And that's the tradition that my family comes from, Vaishnava tradition. And this is the original being himself who, as he says himself in the Gita, he comes here every now and then to repeat what he's already said to this fellow and that other fellow, and I'm here telling it to you because you're not getting it. So in that concept part, the bhakti tradition, the one that sings and chants, the Hare Krishnas, for example, that the original being is Krishna himself. So Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, which means that Krishna is the original being himself who has incarnated, and so it varies depending on who you are, and people might switch from one point of view to another depending on how their devotion goes through. The yoga people tend to be